and those of you, many of you joining us virtually. For all who celebrate today, Eid Mubarak, as you celebrate the end of Ramadan today. And I am Malene Joseph. I'm the coordinator of Development Bank's Cultural and Creative Industries Innovation Fund, CIIF, and I'll be your guide through this morning's proceedings. We are officially relaunching the CIIF project. On behalf of the bank, we extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you here. A special welcome to specially invited guests, our CIIF partners, members of the media, CI stakeholders and colleagues online and in person here. I am acknowledging the presence of Mrs. Therese Turner-Jones, the Vice President of Operations acting here at Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. O'Reilly Lewis, the Director of Projects at the bank as well acting, and Ms. Lisa Harding, Head of the Private Sector Division. So as we get settled, the formal conversation is important, and so I'm going to invite Lisa to share brief remarks that will give you an idea of what the impacts that the CIIF pilot project had and what we have in store for 2024 and beyond. So let's welcome Ms. Harding.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We need some energy. I think it's a small group, but we need some energy in the room. This is the creative industries, so we need to feel some creativity and passion coming from the team. Okay, so just again to a warm welcome on behalf of CIIF and the Private Sector Division and of course the CDB. I just want to share a little bit with you this morning in terms of a little bit about the fund, its achievements so far, and our intentions for the future. So CIIF was established in 2017 by the CDB as a multi-donor fund to develop and encourage innovation, job creation, and improved enterprise sustainability by providing grant financing and technical assistance to key actors in the creative ecosystem in CDB's client countries. The priority subsectors targeted include audiovisual, so this is film, animation and gaming, fashion and contemporary design, festivals and carnivals, music and the visual arts. CIIF has clear objectives that align with the needs of the creative industries it aims to support. And there are really, 4 of these key objectives. One is really to support the enabling environment for the development of the sector, and this is through policies and incentives. Secondly, to improve the quality, depth, and dissemination of research on the sector, and I will speak to that a little bit again later. To enhance the technical capacity of MSMEs in the sector to improve their competitiveness to participate in both local, regional, and international markets. And here we're really speaking about product development, market linkages, and access. And also we also aim to strengthen business support organizations that support the creative industries at both national and regional levels. So a little bit about our impact. Through combined grant programming and access to knowledge products, CIIF has directly impacted over 1,000 beneficiaries across 17 of CDB's 19 client countries. And I think that deserves a round of applause. These have included MSMEs, vulnerable and marginalized populations, including women, academic institutions, as well as civil society. Approximately 40 grants were approved, with grantees self-reporting that these created approximately 144 new jobs because of the funds that were supported by CIIF. Another very important point to note is that CIIF would also have mobilized over $500,000 US in counterpart resources from partners during this first cycle as well. So a little bit, I just want to share it again so you can get a feel for some of the types of projects that we have supported over the first cycle. And I want to really speak to a few that we feel very, really dear to our heart and we think are really, really impactful as well. In collaboration with the Sarstoon Temesh Institute for Indigenous Management in Belize, this was one of CIIF's first grant projects positioned. And it really helped 13 Mayan women as national artists and brought their creative products to a wider market. It simultaneously provided a source of economic empowerment to the Mayan community while honoring and safeguarding cultural heritage knowledge and practices through a component which focused on intellectual property. We also had a visual arts biennial accelerator hosted in the Bahamas and Trinidad, which explored the theme statelessness. And this really brought together multiple voices and visualizations of social issues in the region, including identity, gender-based violence, climate resilience, the marginalization of migrants, and the LGBTQ community. Again, we really have looked at the creative industries as a transversal and intersectional force. Of course, I would be remiss of me not to mention Haiti and CIIF Haiti. This was again, we have been very flexible in how CIIF was designed, and we recognized early on in the CIIF's operationalization that Haiti needed something special. And we therefore created a pilot CIIF Haiti project, which focused on providing support for practitioners in festivals, visual arts, and fashion. 90 persons, 47 men and 43 women, benefited from accelerator programs, product development, and prize grants through that program. Now, regrettably, due to the ongoing unrest, we are also been made aware that a number of artistic studios and facilities have been destroyed by fire, looting, and other gang violence. And really, there's a call for greater support in this cycle and going forward to continue to support Haiti. We know the creativity that resides within the Haitian market. Flexibility and adaptability are also key success factors for a fund like CIIF. And as such, CIIF was designed to accommodate different types of projects and emerging trends within the creative industries. And we were also able to adapt to changes in the economic, social, and cultural landscape. As you would have been aware, the CI sector was one of the major casualties having to undergo a complete cessation of business activity during the height of the pandemic. Consequently, CIIF was agile enough to provide emergency relief grant funding, not originally contemplated, to support the continuity of operations of targeted MSMEs. 7 awarded grants supported activities such as the establishment of technology platforms, hybrid content delivery models, and e-commerce features for projects operating within the subsectors of music, festivals, and carnivals. And again, I think I really want to commend the team because we were able to be responsive and agile and respond to the sector when it needed support the most. It is a popular refrain among carry bankers, measure better to target better. I think we all have heard that a number of times. And this brings me to the next point surrounding data. In this regard, CIIF has played an active role in moving the research needle on the creative industries in the region. One such initiative was an IP data accelerator where we trained a number of persons from the statistical offices across the region and the publishing of 4 country studies on the contribution of copyright industries to GDP. That was done in Grenada, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, and Tobago. And again, it was pioneering research, which actually used regional specific methodology, because a lot of the time, some of the research is not specific to the region. We also supported a number of other research consultancies to address areas of regional concern. This included, for example, a draft toolkit for festival protocols that are relevant to pandemic and disaster conditions in the region. And of course, we are very aware how susceptible we are as a region to natural hazards and events. And this toolkit has really provided good support to the sector in terms of what to do and how to operate when we are impacted by disasters. We've also been able to publish 10 CI country profiles, which presents data on cultural heritage, policy, governance, financing, trade, education, etc., again, for 10 of our member countries. Capacity building has been at the core of CIIF's activities, and of course, training has been a significant feature. Training was delivered through several modalities, including accelerator programs and workshops. Over 30 entities accessed training in the areas of financial training and gender sensitization, and a further 175 individuals accessed CIIF's online proposal writing course. As an innovation fund, as I said, we practice what we preach. CIIF piloted gender sensitization training for all CIIF grant awardees to broaden understanding of key gender concepts, to increase the awareness of common biases, stereotypes, and structural imbalances and inequalities, and introduce participants of the concept of gender transformation to impact harmful gender roles, norms, and power relations. And again, within the creative industries, I think you're aware of how men and women are positioned within the sector and where there may be some inequalities that exist. CIIF has also collaborated with a number of programs within the CDB. It has collaborated with the CTCS program to deliver capacity building to building training to credit officers within national development banks to better assess creative industry-based lending applications to increase access to finance. So far, 44 credit officers and consultants from 16 of our client countries were trained in this regard, and a training module has been developed which can again help to improve the sustainability of that knowledge product and to share information with new officers as they come into the space. The feedback from participants who have benefited from CIIF training indicated that they are more suitably placed to access further grant resources and meet donor accountability requirements. In addition, through such training, there was an enhanced awareness of the creative sector's ecosystem and possibilities for future development. Of course, we could not have done this by ourselves, which leads me to the whole area of strategic partnerships. Guided by our own pillars of innovation, collaboration, and sustainability, CIIF has collaborated with a number of MDBs, civil society organizations, and stakeholders to not only amplify the impact of the fund, but to leverage additional resources. I mentioned the 500,000 plus that we have been able to raise. But again, we have been our key partners have also included the Basic Needs Trust Fund and the gender team within the social sector of the CDB, and as I mentioned, the CTCS and MSME development teams. CIIF also encourages responsible networking and resource sharing under our community of practice model. And again, this was something that was developed at the inception of CIIF and is really supported by a framework of knowledge products and interactive fora. We have developed community of practice guidelines because, again, when you're dealing with the creative sector, understanding and recognition of IP is critical. You know, we're sharing a lot, but this is person's intellectual property. So having guidelines is very, very critical for the sector. And we've also hosted a number of CIIF Creative Talk events, which are really platforms which have been used to interrogate, debate, and address topics of common concern for the sector, really to inform policy changes or to facilitate enhanced levels of support. So what is in store for 2024 and beyond? An independent evaluation of CIIF was completed in December 2022 to assess its continued relevance and to report on progress made. The evaluation concluded that while the fund had made significant gains in terms of it being a catalyst for the development of the CI ecosystem, more needs to be done, and that's why we're here today. There are also a number of few key lessons learned, and I will just mention 3 of them that inform the design of the new CIIF and how we will operate going forward. We recognized early on that there's a need for more project preparation support for applicants. The sector, there is weak capacity. We're really speaking in some instances around small MSMEs, micro businesses, who have never had to report to anyone, furthermore, a CDB, right? So the reporting requirements, understanding the jargon, understanding the language, understanding what we need, that we have to satisfy our donors. We have to find a way to be able to break it down to them and also to get them on board and to buy into why it's necessary. We also recognize that we need to pursue greater inclusion of governmental support in project design. While we had worked a lot with independent private sector organizations, we recognize that the government, the public sector, has to play a facilitating role, and we need to include them more in the conversations. And we also recognize that there's also a need not only for the project preparation support, but more project implementation support for applicants and persons who have been awarded grants. These lessons have been incorporated into the new design of CIIF, which is being relaunched today. Moving forward, we believe that CIIF can enhance its effectiveness and impact through a number of strategies. We will continue to strengthen collaboration amongst our stakeholders. Again, by working together, we can leverage resources, expertise, and networks. I think we also need to embrace technology more. Digital technologies to streamline processes, improve accessibility, and reach a wider audience. This includes implementing online application systems, data analytics for decision making, and even using AI for routine administrative processes. I'm really speaking really outside of my role here, but I'm hoping that our IT department would also be willing to support us in some of these innovations. We also need to, again, continue to focus on sustainability with a stronger emphasis on supporting projects and initiatives that promote sustainable and environmentally responsibility within the sector. This may involve funding projects that utilize eco-friendly materials, promote recycling and upcycling, and raise awareness about environmental issues through creative expression. And finally, we also would want to continue to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want to be able to reach individuals from diverse backgrounds and community. And this includes implementing targeted outreach programs and providing support for underrepresented groups that are actually seeking out projects. So in this regard, we hope that I've been able to sell to you what we have done, and also to encourage you to join us as we continue to build out a creative economy that the region can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I was nodding because we were in the implementation trenches of the pilot. And, we're just so proud to be here today to hear and to see what we really were able to achieve. And so thank you, Lisa. You heard what the pilot has achieved in just 3 years of operations and how we are committed to delivering upon our vision for operations to 2027. I want to take this time to introduce you briefly to the other members of the CIIF team. That's important. Ms. Tameka Roberts-Lee. She's somewhere around. Okay. And Ms. Suzanne King. The work that happened at CIIF was not possible without the team. So all that you just hit, there we go. For those on the stream, for those on the live stream. Right, this is the CIIF team. And we're really proud to serve the CIs, right? Thank you. Okay. So a special thank you again from me. I now invite the Acting Vice President of Operations at Caribbean Development Bank, Ms. Therese Turner-Jones, to just share a little bit about the creative industries, how they intersect with CDB's development priorities for the region, and the vision that the General Bank has. So.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. I clearly missed the memo. It is the orange economy. These ladies got the note. Sorry, this is as orange as I get. But let me also welcome, we have, I think, over 100 people online participating. In this room, we're underrepresented by men, but the men who are here, we're really glad to have you, especially our CDB colleagues. I sat there listening to Lisa and feeling extremely proud of the bank, but also of this work. Because as an economist, there's a lot of loose talk about the role of the creative industries in the Caribbean and how much more it can be contributing to our resilience, but also our future potential, increasing economic opportunities, making the Caribbean a place where we are proud of all of the human potential that exists in this region. And that's what we're celebrating today. I also want to say that, in thinking about what my message would be, apart from the strategic CDB message, of course, which is here on the paper, but I have my own view, just how underrepresented the creative industry or the creative sector is in our everyday life. Just think about it. When I wake up in the morning, I turn on a YouTube music channel and I sort of center myself listening to music. That's a contribution of artists and musicians in our midst. When I get dressed, I try to find something interesting to wear. I have some designer made clothes from the Caribbean. Courtney Washington is one of my favorites. Kenia's last name. Linton is another with her beautiful shirt dress that manages all sizes and shapes. But so I think when we think about it, the creative industry sector, and of course, when we use technology, it's all creativity. So many aspects of our daily lives has an intersection with the creative industries. And somehow I think in the Caribbean, we know that intuitively because we all talk about how proud we are of our musicians, of our designers, of our artists. If you live in Jamaica, for example, as I have in the last 10 years, every Jamaican home is full of art on the walls, including my house. I have half of the household is Jamaican, and I'm sometimes a Jamaican, but I pride myself in supporting artists because it inspires me. It makes me feel like I'm part of a bigger cosmos of the human diverse community that we are. But it also, it puts us in touch with another realm of our human selves, which is really, if we go to the source of creativity, it's soul, it's spirit, it's mind, it's why we're here as human beings. So I wanted to start with that because I think framing this conversation is all about potential. Lisa has elaborated exactly why we started going down this road of investing in a fund, getting partners to help us capitalize the fund. We're proud of that work. To hear the impact and the stories, the research is really important because, of course, nothing, the mantra, measure, to work smarter, to be better. It's not just a mantra, right? We know, I'm an economist and there's some in this room, the way to convince anyone of anything is to first demonstrate that it works. And the only way we can demonstrate it works is if we have data, if we do the research, if we talk to the players, if we understand the environment, if we try to work on the whole ecosystem, which involves not just the creators themselves, but policymakers, the environment for accessing finance, having capacity building pieces that we can turn to when help needs to be provided. All the things Lisa spoke to, that's why we're here. I'm not going to bore you with the strategy of the bank, but I do want to say that at this moment, the senior management, as well as everybody in this room and all the CDB employees, are involved in thinking about our next 10-year strategy. And I would say that this conversation, this talk today is going to be really helpful because as we think about the next 10 years in this region, where the growth poles are going to be, we need to hear whether there is potential in the sector, and I think we know the answer to that, but how can we show that we're exporting goods, we're exporting services, we are integrated into the international community, we are part of the global system of creatives, and we are proud of our festivals, proud of our musicians, proud of our designers, proud of our artists, and I'm sure I'm missing lots of others. We don't often talk about architecture, but architecture is another form of creative expression. And what I'm really excited about is yesterday we heard here at CDB, yay, that the bank has about to embark on our new campus and what that would look like. And I'm sure we need to make sure that our creative voices come out there. So Lisa, I'm putting you on notice. Please be on the committee. We need buildings with proper names. And we need our buildings to inspire us, because again, as human beings, we thrive when we're in an environment that is aesthetically pleasing, is comfortable, is healthy, and so on. So I think all of that will go into our new campus, and so we look forward to that work. I just wanted, something Lisa didn't mention is maybe our collaboration with UNESCO and their call for action and a piece of work that they did in 2022, again, thinking about the research. What were they calling for? So we already talked about the intersection of the creative industries, the social value, economic value, and extracting value from the sector. We know that there is a line to be drawn between what can be produced, what services can result, whatever the products are. We know that there's money to be made in this business. As Lisa pointed out, in the Caribbean, most of these folks tend to be small operators or a one-person show, or because that's how creative talent works. As much as I think what we see in business is collaboration, bringing ideas across, but I think the creative process is really individuals tapping into their gifts to produce what they produce, whether it's of beauty or something for us to enjoy. So we know that there is a value chain that we can trace. And the emphasis we want to put on here is, again, how do we make sure that the environment in which all of our creatives are working is conducive to getting to that end goal, right? Creating value, exhibiting to the rest of the world, but also to potential creatives in our region. And here I'm speaking especially to young people. I'm sure there are a lot of young people online who are thinking, oh my goodness, I can do this. I don't know where to turn next. Well, where to turn next is to try to connect the dots, try to be involved in the, as it's being called here, the ecosystem of creatives and the sector, to make sure that you get the support you need to advance your idea and your talents. But going back to the UNESCO piece, just 1 second. I just wanted to say that what their call to action in 2022 really appealed to us at the bank, because UNESCO is a huge organization. Its emphasis is on education and culture. But to have UNESCO make a call for action for policymakers to use education policy, technology policy, trade policy, urban planning policy, and here is the architecture piece, to have all of those policymakers think about how the creative sector can be involved in those policy frameworks. And here, again, this is some work for us. And the value of this approach got endorsed when we helped fund the WIPO statistical study with Dr. Vanis James on how, and Lisa pointed to the GDP estimations that were done on the 4 countries. So for example, in St. Lucia, what she found was that just having a copyright, well, we know it adds value, but industries where there were copyrights in place, they could boost the country's capacity to export at a much faster rate, and it contributed to a substantial trade surplus. And this data is going back to 2026, but I think that's an important finding. In Grenada, the arts, entertainment, and cultural sector, for example, also created a positive trade balance. So I think when we have the data to back up the suggestions we're making, we understand where the potential is. The report also called for, again, we're doing the same, adequate funding, infrastructure, capacity building initiatives to help promote the creative enterprises, empower marginalized communities, as we spoke to, and preserve cultural heritage. And let me say, I think this is the first CDB forum I've been in where I've heard mention made of marginalized communities and diversity in the way that it has. So I want to congratulate the team for doing that, particularly mentioning LGBTQ and Indigenous communities, because I think they are often overlooked in the Caribbean, and they're also as we think about artists around the world, we know that a lot of creativity comes out of hardship, right? If you think back to most artists, where does it come from? Poetry, I mean, it always comes from pain. It comes from overcoming some disadvantage. We see that in our music, whether it's dancehall or rap music. It's countercultural. It's not what we're expecting. It's not mainstream. So again, I challenge us in the room, and I challenge the bank, and I challenge everybody working in this area to continue to look out for those marginalized groups, because we know that creativity resides there in a lot of ways. Lisa was very good at saying that we're about to launch, well, we have launched the second pot of funds. And while in my mind, I think it's a modest amount of money, it's under $2 million, but we have to see it as almost like yeast, right? It's catalyzing. If we demonstrate that the impact is there, other partners will be inclined to say, okay, CDB is onto something, the region's onto something. We're not the only MDB in this space, and we're always reminded of how small we are and how small our resources are, especially, and looking at this team. Basically, you saw the team. This is the team. There's no like back office. This is the team. This is the team. But you know, the Jamaicans have a phrase that I like a lot, and I put on my best Jamaican patois. We small, but we talawa, right? So let me just end by saying, I'm hoping that when we do the report, Lisa, in 3 years' time, because we've got a 3-year runway for implementing this new set of resources, that we have really unearthed new talent in the region. We are bringing life to all of the creative work that we know exists here. We are taking a step in not just promoting our cultural heritage, but landing ourselves on the global scene. And we don't have to land, we're already there, but it's about also exposing new entrants, young people, women, marginalized groups. So I hope you find this talk today very helpful. Certainly the team is here to take a lot of notes. As I mentioned, the strategy is coming up. I would suggest you think about that in terms of how we carve out in the strategy, how we make this interconnection between whatever our strategy results in for the next 10 years, that this is, to me, it should be sort of like a thread running through everything. Because as I said, it's at the heart of human potential. It's why we're here. We're transforming lives. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you for those reminders that we are committed to doing the work and we're finding intersectionality where we can. So in seeking to achieve the CIIF vision of awakening a global Caribbean consciousness while supporting sustainable socioeconomic growth within the Caribbean, CIIF is guided by 3 operational pillars: innovation, collaboration, and sustainability. So this thread runs through all of our programming, and we are about to unveil something very special to show these pillars in action. And right after that, we'll make a quick changeover to our panel here at the conference center, but we will have live entertainment by musician and instrumentalist Kweku Jelani. So we're going to unveil our special product, and then you're going to have live music as we do our changeover. Thank you.
Creative Caribbean, we are pleased to officially introduce a call to action to those in our regions or in the economy. Emerging from an island music conference songwriting workshop in Jamaica, powered by CIIF, here's our newest project creation.
The Caribbean win!
Innovation, dedication, collaboration, developing nations. CIIF. CIIF.
It's creative fun fund assisting everyone in 19 countries of the Caribbean. We've got music, fashion, art and festivals.
Technology, digital economy,
We're talking about regional integration.
CIIF, innovation, dedication, collaboration, developing nation. CIIF, innovation, dedication, collaboration, developing nations.
A project by the Caribbean Development Bank.
Good day. What we part of this thing?
Mic test, mic test. All right. So as we change energy and space, I think is really important to find out what we all bring into the creativity mix. So I'm going to actually ask each of the panelists before we introduce what are they bringing to the creativity picnic? What is the ingredient that you're bringing to the creativity picnic? Don't all rush.
Passion.
Passion,
Yep. Innovation.
innovation,
A will to explore and collaborate.
a will to explore and collaborate.
Hopefully.
I think the ingredients coming together nicely. Darren, what would you be bringing to the picnic?
Policy.
Policy. Oh, okay. I think I'll bring some more entertainment to the picnic, actually, live music and vibes, because policy needs some vibes, right? Okay, so how are we feeling here at the CDB Conference Center? We okay? All right. Okay, so good morning to those of us tuned in, stakeholders online, I am Malene Joseph, the coordinator of CDB's Cultural and Creative Industries Innovation Fund. And we are the most valuable juncture, I think, of today's proceedings. We are relaunching CIIF, and today's panel is actually the seventh in our series of CIIF Creative Talks, which is our flagship feature, one of the flagship features of the fund. And briefly, the Creative Talk concept, it comes from our community of practice design. And this series of conversations is between stakeholders, practitioners, and policymakers in the CI sector. And it aims to build effective communication channels, enable relationships of trust between us all, and explore key thematic issues. And so today I am joined by my colleague, Darren Carter, a young professional in the gender equality space in the bank's social sector division. And I'm going to hand over to Darren to make the panel introductions and start us off today on our conversation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Malene. And good morning once again to everyone. My name is Darren Carter, and happy to be here. But even happier to introduce our esteemed panelists. I think it's really important that we're here to hear the lived experience of beneficiaries of CIIF. So I'm going to start by introducing Alana Brooks. Alana holds a Bachelor of Science graduate degree in Social Sciences from the University of the West Indies and a Master of Architecture graduate from the University of Toronto. Alana is an instructor at two of Barbados's tertiary education institutions and an associate architect at an established design firm. Alana is dedicated to developing a mode of design which explores the convergence of arts and sciences. So I'm incredibly interested to hear more about that, and I'm sure we're going to delve into that a little bit further today. So welcome. Next is Kimon Baptiste. Kimon was named Island Designer of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at the 2008 Caribbean Fashion Awards and has been the recipient of several awards since then, including the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Youth Entrepreneur of the Year in 2010 and the Caribbean Style and Culture Awards for Excellence in Fashion in Washington, D.C. in 2018. Kimon officially launched her clothing brand, Chemistic Clo, in 2007, and it is a sustainable, ethical brand which features ready-to-wear clothing from natural fibers. Kimon, the creative director, is a former Miss St. Vincent and Grenadines and a graduate of the University of the West Indies with a BSc in Management and Psychology. Welcome, Kimon. And no, go ahead.
May I add, I'm clothed in one of Kimon's designs, actually. Yes.
And last but certainly not least, Jamilia Bique. Jamilia is an accomplished entrepreneur and executive specializing in the apparel and fashion industry. Her diverse skills encompass retail, event management, fashion design, merchandising, supply chain management, and strategic planning. In 2012, she founded Fashion Fundamentals Trinidad and Tobago, which focuses on capacity building. She also established Vice Versa Fashion Company, providing value chain management services to numerous brands and spearheading international projects. And Uppoint, a cloud-based platform digitizing the fashion industry's primary and support value chain activities, which is currently expanding its reach globally. She's a graduate of the Caribbean Academy of Fashion and Design, University of Trinidad and Tobago. So a warm welcome for all of our panelists here. Back over to you, Malene.
Back over to me. Okay. All right. So, find my way. All right. We're actually headed a little off the page, even though I have a page in front of me. We're headed off the page. We heard your bio blurbs, but we actually want to find out a little more about each of you. So can you tell us, I'll start with you, Alana, how did you come to your current creative and practice, and the eventual project activity that you brought to CIIF? How were those ideas birthed? How long did they maybe live in your mind, your journal, before you were able to make them come to fruition?
Yes, so I would say from a young age, I've been around the field of architecture, runs in the family. My father is also an architect, that happens to be the case. And personally, I've always been interested in art. During secondary school, you could always find me in the art room, sculpture, painting, and so on. That was my big interest. So I kind of been able to pursue that. in some ways, or it may seem, I took a divergent path in terms of school when I went to UE and did my social sciences degree. But in a way, I think it added to my depth of knowledge or interest and so on when it came to social issues and so on. So I think that was a valuable and an additional part of my journey. Fast forwarding, I went away to school to Toronto, came back and started to kind of find my way within our family practice. And I was very blessed to be made aware of the CIIF program, the project which was suggested, and it was regarding having this asking artists to provide a kind of a response or a commentary on what climate change would mean to the various nations. So I didn't really assume that I would kind of offer a strictly architectural solution, but I wanted to kind of provide a fusion of art and social concerns and architecture, and that would be my kind of commentary and my response to the project. And ultimately, I really enjoyed the program, the networking, the information, the people that we met from throughout the region, and here I am. It went quite well.
Yes, and we'll ask a little more about that a little later on. But so Alana is actually referencing the CIIF Visual Arts Biennial that was run out of the Bahamas. It was a virtual program, 25 different participants of different visual art practices brought their thoughts on the matter of the theme of statelessness, looking at all those intersections. So thank you, Alana. And so, Kimon, how did we arrive here as a creative, as a business owner, woman? You own your own MSME. So tell us how did it all start?
It's a long story, but I'll cut it short. I've always been creative. I've always had a passion for looking pretty and dressing up, and my mother, thankfully, she encouraged that. I was very into academics as well, but that there was a creative burning inside of me. The encouragement when it came to pursuing tertiary level education, the encouragement to pursue creatively, it was not there. Unfortunately. At that time, there just wasn't enough encouragement, hence the diversion to management and psychology when I came to UE. But there was still always that creative burning. And so I taught myself everything I knew about construction and, garment making and garment production. And so when I happened upon the CIIF program, to be honest with you, it didn't catch my attention right away. Because I'm like, in my mind, what is this? Who is CIIF? But thankfully, at the time, I would have gotten newsletters from Caribbean Export, and there was a collaboration happening, and that caught my attention, and it sent me to read a little bit further into the program. It piqued my interest, that part about product development and training and learning. And I think it was just a few days before the deadline, I submitted. And, thankfully, my application was accepted. I suppose I submitted a really good application, because it was targeted towards capacity building and training, because I think those things, they connect. When you train and you build your capacity, the product development comes because you have that knowledge base. And so here we are.
Here we are. And we're really grateful. And Kimon is referencing the very first accelerator program coming out of CIIF in partnership with Caribbean Export in 2019. So I'm putting some dates here, right?
Yes.
So Kimon met us in 2019.
Correct.
You would have met us in 2021. right? And I'm gonna hand over to Jamilia to tell us,
Oh,
how
I got
did it
there.
all begin?
Um, I would just go back. I don't want to go into the long story, but I'll just cast my memory back to when I was 17 years old or thereabouts. And not to age myself, I remember when used to watch Elsa Blanchard Style. So that's it. You already know what milestone I had this year, right? But I remember growing up watching Elsa Blanchard Style. It was the only fashion program. And I saw the models, I saw the clothing, I thought it was all interesting. But what I always wondered about was who was behind the scenes? Who was coordinating this entire beautiful runway show that I was seeing? That was where what I was interested in. And there is a level of creativity. I've designed jewelry. I'm a trained makeup artist as well. And I've been a stylist and all of those things, but there's something about what makes this industry work that just excites me. And that's where it started for me. And I remember graduating school and going on to do business administration and so on, and not seeing an avenue, right? Not seeing an avenue to be trained in this industry that I loved, specifically from the back end. And then UTT launched their fashion management program. And that was it. That was it for me. I enrolled in the second cohort, and I remember making the decision, if I was going to go into the fashion industry, I was going to go full time. And I'm happy to say I've been full time in the fashion industry for 13 years. Yeah, this year. Yeah. And it's trying, it has been trying, but I remember starting to style. I remember working with different designers. I remember seeking out and crafting opportunities for myself that I didn't see existing. Like it didn't exist, I crafted it. And I'm so thankful for the education I received at UTT that really created an outlook into what's occurring in the international industry, but also the relevance of what's happening here in the Caribbean. And that for me has always been the connecting point, the relevance of who we are in the Caribbean as creators and as facilitators, as innovators. And so I moved on to, when I completed fashion school, I said, there's going to be another 17-year-old who's going to want to be in the fashion industry and not have access. That's when I founded the Fashion Fundamentals Camp. And so far, we've been able to support 200 students throughout Trinidad and Tobago, to give them an intro. Thank you, an intro to the fashion industry. And again, it didn't exist, so we crafted it. And then I started consulting, and I met my mentor, and I consulted with different fashion brands, and there was always a gap. And it's in the gap is where the opportunity is, but in the gap, when you're so passionate about the industry, is where the pain point is. And, I exist in what's available. I'm also existing in the gap. I'm always present in the gap. Went on, we did 3 coming out of those partnerships with the support of Kuriri, with the support of Tobago House of Assembly. We did 3 trade missions to Tokyo. We were the first to have Caribbean designers in Tokyo at trade shows, showcasing their products and receiving sales. And there was still a gap, right? There's always a gap, right? The gaps persist. And I realized that the gap was also with me, because I couldn't do it all. I couldn't even corral enough people to support the creative sectors. And it's that humbling understanding that the gap is with me that has led me to create Uppoint, with the support of my co-founder, who is also Caribbean heritage, and he's my brother-in-law. So he sticks with me, and he's a developer. And we developed Uppoint because what we saw was that we are the innovators and we are the creators. We are the ones to manage the course of the creative industry in the Caribbean. We are the ones, right? And we are the best suited to do so. And if we seek partnership within our ecosystem and externally to cause that to occur in a way that's sustainable, that's where that's where I saw Uppoint, mapping the value chain and providing that space where creators could go in, get the support that they needed. And then, of course, as we launched Uppoint, we spent about 6 months literally in a basement developing Uppoint. And we came back and I said to my co-founder, we were in New York, and I said, I'm going back to the Caribbean, I'm going back home. This platform is for the Caribbean first. And while we have people who sign up for the platform, different parts of the world, this is for us first, right? We get to benefit from this first. And I remember seeing the CIIF project, and I was so excited. And then I remembered, you know, everybody uses Canva, right? The government of Australia has paid Canva. They have facilitated their development so they didn't have to go to Silicon Valley. And for me, this is what CIIF is. It's that facilitation so that we have the footing that we could create something here in the technology and the creative space. We are supported in developing it, and it's owned by us. And if we decide to, you know, go out there and seek additional support and funding and flourish, we know that we have our roots buried here. And that for me is what CIIF is, and that's how I came to be a part of this project. I submitted my proposal like everybody else, and I remember putting everything in the kitchen sink in terms of what I saw. And I thought to myself, I think these people may think I'm a little crazy because this is this is ambitious. This is a lot. And I'm just happy that, you know, that the vision was clear, and that it was essentially planting a seed in already fertile ground.
Thank you, thank you. So y'all are making us look really robust. So Darren, over to you, because we're talking about the wins, but we're gonna get down to some of the pain points.
Sure, thank you so much. And thank you for that story as well. I think that, you know, emerging from each of our panelists is a theme of a need matched with a facilitation. And I'm really pleased to see that CIIF is going to continue to do that work for the next 3 years. So we spoke about gaps, right? We've all encountered gaps. And, you know, Lisa and Therese would have highlighted that in their remarks, you know, some of the gaps that women particularly face in the creative industry space. We know for a fact that work in the creative economy is often freelance. It's project-based, part-time, oftentimes insecure, which would mean that equal opportunity and employment rights may not necessarily be extended to workers in the creative industry. And, you know, we recognize that this may have a disproportionate impact on women in particular, the most vulnerable, for whom progress on reaching decent work standards is recognized to be slower than for men. So with all of that, with that mouthful, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered working in the creative industry space as a woman?
Well, I think that I wouldn't say that within the architecture landscape, in terms of professionals in Barbados, women are lacking. I think that there are a large number of female practitioners as architects in Barbados. They do exist, but I think that there may be, and perhaps I shouldn't be quoted, there's a sense of competition amongst us that is pervasive. I think maybe because you might feel as if you're limited opportunities, maybe due to your gender, you might be perceived as being possibly less competent or less capable of dealing with the nitty-gritty of a project, of the part when it goes to the construction site and going on site and so on. That is a real part of it when you're coming to building something, and then, you know, when you go on a construction site, sometimes, you know, the persons who are working on the construction site, that is an experience in itself. Often as a female, as a younger female, you know, it's another layer on the challenge, another challenge that is another layer. You know, the first layer is, you know, to be inspecting and paying attention to what's going on, but then you have to perhaps deal with the challenge of the response that you may have, lack of response, and persons may be behaving to you in a manner which they may not towards a male profession who they might be expecting to more so see in position. So that's kind of another layer of the experience. And that can be a challenge. That can be a bit stressful, because you want to almost prepare yourself in advance to maybe even have your gender sometimes not be visible or obvious, which is unfortunate at times. You don't want to go into a site in any way that you may be drawing attention in terms of what you're wearing or that kind of thing. And even I would say, I would add, I suppose, and the education side of it, as I teach also, and in two different schools. In one school, my classes are predominantly males, and I would say that ultimately I am able to handle the class. But at first, there's usually a bit of a shock of, okay, you're not what I was expecting. You're not always expecting to be your instructor, and you can get a bit of a pushback. And I would argue a little bit more challenge in terms of behavior, in terms of boundaries being crossed sometimes than perhaps other instructors may come across. And that's my assumption in terms of what they experience, but that's not my experience. That's when it comes to certain fields, certain classes.
No, certainly. Thank you for that. And we're going to come to how you would have navigated those challenges momentarily. But Kimon, how about you?
Okay, so
Should be on. Yeah.
right. So in terms of challenges, I mean, you mentioned one. There's always, an issue with financing. There is that. But within my industry, I would say trying to find a skilled workforce. Let me just explain that a little bit. For me personally, one of the things that I hold really dear to my heart is the fact that I want to maintain the authenticity of my brand. I want my brand to be authentically Caribbean, right? Which means that I want my workforce and my staff members to be local. I want everything to be done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So when it says made in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you mean that it's made in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right? This is one of the reasons why CIIF was so important to me as well. It's off.
Just a little switch on the side.
Am I on now? Yes. Right. Okay. So this is, you got the first part though, right? Okay. So this is why CIIF came at just the right time for me. There's always this fear within the industry that your intellectual property or your ideas are going to go with you when you train other persons. And it's a real fear, and it's there. And I remember initially when I started, it was myself and two other ladies. And I had just had my son, and I had a C-section. And I remember having tons of orders to still fulfill. And, we women in the workforce, we know about this. We give birth and we go right back to work, right? For me, the challenge came where, I was not able to physically fulfill all that I was required to. And I thought to myself, this real hard. So there came a need for me to train my workforce and train them in the things that I already knew, right? Like, the noise, sorry. So I think that programs like the accelerator program that CIIF implement, it's extremely important because, I mean, in addition to having a skilled workforce, one of the things that as creatives, we want to be able to export, and we want to have products that are export ready and export quality. So, I think training in general within the creative industry, that's one of the major challenges that we have. And we need it. We need the support of, CIIF and Caribbean export, and I see UN women in the house, Caribbean. We need that to kind of fill the gap when it comes to those challenges as it regards to training and having trained staff, so that when we say we are made in the Caribbean and we are made in St. Vincent or Barbados or Trinidad, we mean it. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. Jamilia?
Okay. In the space of business and technology, albeit, creative industries, right? But where Uppoint exists, where I exist as a professional is in that intersection of business, technology, and creativity. And usually the experience is, a woman, from the Caribbean, a woman of color is not necessarily going to be what technology, the industry recognizes. And so I went to a few different conferences and went to one of them at one of my, an incubator that I really do admire, which is Y Combinator. And I was present to the experience, like, oh, you're from Trinidad and Tobago and you came all the way here. And, I had a friend who always says back to people, oh, you from here and you haven't been all the way to Trinidad and Tobago, kind of thing. That was my experience, right? That's what I wanted to say. But, that surprise that, and you're a woman, right? So in that space, there's always an expectation that a woman is either going to be too forceful or too passive, right? Too emotional, too passionate. And, I have a very big personality, big voice, presence, and so on. And it's balancing that and the passion in a way that people are able to get what I'm creating is where I started to erode at who I am. As a woman, as a passionate person, and as someone who has really ideas for what's available. And I've been fortunate enough, and the men in the room, really gender equality, the partnership that's required with men and women is where we would really make some advancements in fostering gender equality. And I say that to say, I've had co-founders, men who I've worked with that have enabled me, even in the spaces where I have been advised to be a little quieter, a little subservient. They've enabled me, and they've also been straight with me and held me accountable for who I've been being in those spaces. That is the value. And so I'm thankful to the men in my life, the men I've co-founded with, that support me in that way, that have enabled me as well to be present to who I am. And the women, the strong women that have also shown me, but inside of how they've been being and the support and advice that they've given to me, that I too can really be true to who I am and what I see, the intentions that I see and I have for the industry, and what I see is missing, I can put it in as well. So it's that partnership that's really powerful, and it has caused me to even erode a lot of that noise that, they're not going to understand. They're going to think that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? Because I'm obviously from the Caribbean. I didn't grow up in California, right? I'm coming to talk about technology. So it really is important for the men and women to really go hand in hand in really fostering gender equality regionally, and I would dare say internationally.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamilia. Across your responses, whether it was the challenges with training, navigating preconceptions about, or assumptions about your gender identity and what that might mean for your professional capacity, or even in highlighting the importance of allyship and partnerships in overcoming that. I was wondering if you could perhaps share some of the other ways in which you have navigated this space and some of those challenges that you mentioned in the creative industry space.
Well, I think personally, I just try to be as competent as possible. Use proof as my ultimate weapon if I do need a weapon, And I don't really I don't approach things in a defensive manner. I believe that you need to work with people and work with men. I don't believe in the notion of seeing men as the adversary. So as you were saying, I think that there are men, males who are willing to, you know, be the ally and prevent um, or bad behavior stand upon your behalf at times, and they have to be, you know, acknowledged and recognized. And I also like to, you know, look at other examples of persons that perhaps are getting it done also, who are doing it and doing it well, you know. So the idea of a mentor is something which I would like to pursue, but on the other hand, I see that there's a challenge, I think, in terms of finding mentors of female professionals. Is that, I mean, they're doing so well, they're so busy in their field. Do they have the time or do they have the space to be a mentor, a great example in terms of having access to that to them? But I mean, so far so good, and I think I just try to do my best and show respect, and I feel as if I gain respect at the same time. So yeah.
So I'm taking notes. So I'm going to take notes here, bullet points, mentorship. Yeah, that's a gap that we could probably speak to. And quick shots, because we're taking notes for CIIF too.
Yeah. For me, I created a space where I want my staff to be constantly learning. So when I learn new things, I transfer it to my staff. And so that in my absence, they're competent enough to take on challenges. In addition to that, one of the things that I do each summer, I take on interns so that persons who are interested in being creative, the creative industry, fashion, you know, they have a space where they can come, they can learn, and, you know, just understand a little bit more of what happens within the industry. I'm actually happy to be able to say that there were two young men under my mentorship who've already launched their own fashion brands within St. Vincent and the Glen. And I'm really, really proud to be able to say that. So that's pretty much it. And I'm calm in, you know, I only get Talawa if I need to.
Yeah, like about Talawa. But so then you're offering to this the challenging spaces to transfer your knowledge and keep the training going.
Constant.
So mentorship, transference of knowledge, and Jamilia.
What I would say is being present to what your actual vision is and what your why is. Like really being present to that. And what that looks like sometimes is not always a happy, cheery feeling of, oh my God, I'm doing this. This is great. It's also what I create, what I say is like consistent conversations where you're competing things. So where you're looking at where am I in proximity to this vision, what's working, what's not working, right? And always just taking responsibility for what's occurring now and where you are in proximity to your vision, right? Once you consistently have those conversations, I've actually now taken it on as a weekly practice. Like what's missing, what's not missing, what do I get to be responsible for? And just like radical responsibility and accountability is what is required, I think, for success, but always standing in the vision that you're creating.
Right. So we have mentorship, knowledge transfer, and keeping the vision alive and clear. Yeah, I think that answered some of those challenges. Yeah, I think it's time to take we'll take a question from the online space and we'll take one from or comment from in-person space. I did get a question prompt, and Susan Jones and Tahiti on the LinkedIn stream, they have asked if the CIIF's cycle, so it's about the general CIIF cycle, if it will include the performing arts. but this is an important conversation, and I'm happy to answer this. We do incorporate the performing arts. The pillars of CIIF are innovation, collaboration, and sustainability. So we look for that in all of the grant projects and applications. So we encourage you to team up. Performing arts sits within all of the wider concerns. Specifically, you might find it more in the festival subsector, but again, visual arts, fashion, all of them are connected. So the call here is, the call to action is to think innovatively, collaborate, and find a way to get your performing arts concept through the CIIF cycle door, right? So I hope that answers that question. Darren, you want to see if we have any?
Are there any questions in the room? Please, in the middle.
One moment, yes.
Yeah, we can get it.
Hi everyone, Rachel Rennie visiting from Trinidad and Tobago. Happen to be here, but I've been an agri entrepreneur for 16 years. We were the first. I've always been in tech. I'm passionate about food, passionate about nutrition, wellness, Caribbean wellness, because I think the ingredients we have here are made for us and have everything that we need and can bring a lot of value to what we do. So I'm very technical. I love food. And I was recently told that I was a creative, which I think I'm not personally. But the more I went a little deeper into it and did some research because I am a very technical person. And, I'm on this path now on what is a creative. And it's funny, I was invited to this event. I believe nothing happens by chance. And I was just wondering, what are some personal things you do to foster or uncover your creativity? Because I'm very new to this, and it would be good to know if there are some personal tips around that.
Oh, go first?
Yes, quick shots again.
Well, I immerse myself in so many different media, really. I mean, architecture is kind of the most technical of my interests. I'm big into music, sculpture, painting, and so on. So I think it's the exposure to different types of artistic exploration, and I think that adds depth to then what your focus is, and so on. So that's what I would say: draw inspiration or ideas from multiple realms. Yeah,
I agree with that. For me, I call myself a fabraholic. So wherever I go, doesn't matter where, I try to find a fabric store. And not necessarily to go crazy and buy everything I see, but I can be inspired by textures and colors, and that also comes in the form of, it could be a show on TV. I watch a lot of Netflix. So if you're a creative, you try to draw inspiration from everything around you. And I think it's important that you're in tune with what you like and what you feel. If there's a lot of noise, I would say get away from that. If you have to know who you are so that you know where your inspiration would come from. Yeah.
Yes, I would say an amalgamation of what we've all been saying. But Rachel, as a technical person in a creative space and uncovering that you are creative, because I know you are, right? I'm really, I'm familiar with you and we know each other. What I would say is creativity is like a love letter to yourself and to everybody else that you're creating whatever it is for. It might be the color story for me for Uppoint, right? Like what that color story looks like. What does it invoke, right? But it's a love letter from you to everyone else. And once it's well received, of course, the love comes back, right? Because people are like, oh, I love this. This is a really well-designed page. And that experience. So you want to create that experience for yourself consistently. right? Really be focused on what you love and curate whatever you're creating around that. Because creativity is really putting your intention into the world. That's what it is. There's nothing really new under the sun, right? It's all there. So you're generating from what's there because it's a conversation. So you want to see what you love, put it out there, and then you want to see how it's being received and bring that back. It's a cycle. It's not, so it's what you love, bring it back, and then continue to create.
Can I just add to that really quick? The thing about putting your creativity out there, the love doesn't always come back, right? Not everyone is going to like what you put out there, and that's why I kind of reiterated that you have to know yourself. You have to be true to you, and you have to be authentic, so that eventually the love might come back. But just saying that initially, that might not be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, well said, well said. Okay, so I think I'm gonna switch up a little bit and let's hear about the community. I think we're really interested in finding out more about the impacts of what the work that you were able to do through the CIIF project, what those have made. So, I'll start off and then I'll pass it around. How have your women-led creative practices and businesses, how have they been impacted, first of all, by, y'all hinted at some of it, by the CIIF investment, but we are looking at actually the multiplier effect, right? So, Kimon,
Yes.
What has been that impact on your community? We had a similar project where one of our first projects was supporting a Mayan fashion training program. They launched a line and the community co-created, co-led, and now have been pushing that brand globally. What has that been for you in St. Vincent?
Okay. I mentioned briefly earlier that, under my tutelage, 2 young men have already launched their brand. And I am all for gender, equality, in whatever form it may come. Training is huge for me. I love learning. And so, the impact on my community, because I have created that space, it means the world to me that persons can reach out and say, hey, can you offer this service? Can you offer this training? And I am happy to oblige. I do have an empty space, just saying, I'm just putting that out there. There is an empty space that
taking notes.
There is an empty space because the way I've set up is there's a showroom, there's production, and there is now also an empty space that I want to furnish so that students can come and we can continue the training. Personally, I know we crunch for time, but I just want to add the effect that the CIIF program had on me personally. I learned a lot. Part of what I want to do was not just to be a dressmaker. I wanted to create a brand that can be recognized as a Caribbean brand, both regionally as well as internationally. And being a part of the CIIF Accelerator training program was the start of that. After that, it was so intense. And to be honest, the grant didn't stand out to me at first. It was a training. And coming off of that training, I mastered the technique of finishing my products, so much so that retailers would start reaching out to me. I am happy to report that as of last year, there's a store in India that's actually willing to carry the brand. And the CIIF program was the key and the start of all of that for me. I just had to put that out there.
Thank you. And for clarity, Kimon was part of the first training accelerator, but she was also awarded a prize grant to further her concept and development, and that helped you set up your business.
Yes.
And you employ how many persons?
8.
8 persons, eight
Yeah.
seamstresses that you have trained
Yes.
from the community,
Yes.
right? And you have room now for more.
I have a space. Yeah.
And Alana, briefly, your project again. So Alana, you would have been one of you were a trainee in the Visual Arts Biennial Accelerator, but you were also a prize grant awardee. So tell us just a little bit about the project. And again, I think your project stage is a little different, but what are the potential impacts for your country and for the region from your project?
Okay, well, as you said, my project was part of the stateless theme from 2021, and it was really about how do we capture or maintain or protect this idea of identity and culture in the Caribbean at a time when there's so much uncertainty when it comes to climate change and natural events, and how can we do this in a physical way, really? So it was a fusion of art and for me also architecture. So my proposal really was about exploring the possibilities of that. And I think the other very important part, or the very interesting part of what was required of us was this idea of collaboration and consultation with the community, or involving interviewees to see what they would do, or how would they imagine a crisis situation, how would they respond in terms of shelter, and not just shelter, but a place of gathering, a place of education, what kind of spaces were possible, and how could they be meaningful culturally. So it's not a matter of just implanting a structure or bringing a structure that has designed perhaps in China or Norway or something like that, and saying, okay, well, this is a sheltered structure here, put it in Barbados. What is a way of capturing culture, communicating culture, and providing shelter in a way that is unique to the Caribbean? And then coupled with that, not coupled with that, on the other side of that, or I think the more challenging side of that, or where I am now, is how to get it done, how to create a prototype. I'm at the stage of this idea of a prototype of a form which can be produced, ideally in the Caribbean, when it comes to manufacturing this essentially a modular system. How do I get this built in the Caribbean in a cost-effective way? How do I keep the industry, the businesses in the Caribbean part of it, so I'm not looking for outward information? How do I make those connections, and so on? So I think those are the
note taking.
Yeah,
the
that's
next
the next step of it. But I would say that it was eye-opening for me in terms of the value of the consultation, the collaboration with real people. So people who are the community members I interviewed, and saying, okay, well, I presented, for example, a manual of how you put together this structure. And as an architect or so on, the manual, the kit of parts, I was calling it, is quite legible to me. But is it legible or usable to an ordinary person? So, having that kind of assessment by an ordinary person, someone who isn't necessarily technically, skilled, is important, because that's how things become reality, right? That's how it becomes relevant in reality. And I think it caused some of my interviewees to feel important, feel as if they are important to the conversation of what do we do in this time of climate change and structure. It's not just a top-down approach of things. It's like I'm participating in the construction. I'm participating in the conversation about new solutions to a very real challenge that we have when it comes to uncertainty in the environment and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think we're going to be looking forward to finding a way to get you past this stage. We got you past stage 1, but also, you spoke to the importance of the community voice, and I want to thread the CI thread, multiple disciplines again. So people have been asking, y'all don't serve certain subsectors. There's a space for all. So even in communicating the messaging or finding another way to communicate the manual instructions, the multimedia professionals, etc. So
Yeah.
there's room for
Yeah.
all of us to collaborate.
So if I could say, I mean, it's if I'm predominantly, you know, into spatial design, but the production, the manual is graphic design, it's illustration, it's publishing, and that is a whole other field, you know, related, but it's specialized. It takes knowledge and skills, and you know, it's designating, collaborating, finding a team to bring it all together. 'Cause that's a project in itself.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
yeah.
Okay. My notes are quite long.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll hand over.
Yes. How about you, Julia?
I'm-
I know you would have spoken about the gap that your business serves, and particularly in highlighting the value chain issues and improving accessibility to the value chain for local businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. But what other community impacts, or you could speak some more about that community impact in particular?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I acknowledge my fellow panelists for what you've done so far for the community. Really remarkable. And, you know, in the creative industries, we're usually of lesser means. We don't have as much, right? But what we've been able to create and impact, I think that's amazing. You know, when we look at the creative industry, specifically from the value chain management, technology perspective, the assumption is that it's hands-off, right? It's all technology, it's somebody coding in the back, right? But what we've actually been able to take on with Uppoint, and I'll create some examples, we've been able to bring forward people in the community who actually provide support for creatives and have them train and support creatives and be able to compensate them for same, right? So we've been able to do so with any Sandra Carr, who's now who used to be at UCT, Richard Young, who is a creative maverick from the Caribbean, Tameka Fletcher Birmingham, who has a marketing background. So she's been able to bring her skill, and they've all been able to bring their skill and share that knowledge. We've actually, what we took on as well as we built the platform, because that's what we were able to be supported with, creating a training mechanism, which we created, and we were able to serve 40 creatives, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the Caribbean, which is the privilege of technology, right? You'll really be able to utilize that and provide them with support. And we were able to actually employ creatives in the creative sectors who were otherwise unemployed because they were in the carnival arts or they were in the fashion and modeling sectors, and there was no opportunity for them. What was available to them through the opportunity was they were actually able to express themselves creatively, right? And they were able to take on new responsibilities and skills that they already had that we just brought out through the opportunity. So it really brought the community through the technological space, the wider community together, right? And in terms of the value chain, what we're really looking at now is what would that look like in terms of the ecosystem if it existed in one place? I was so excited to hear that Caribbean Development Bank is actually training creditors, right? So what we're actually doing now as Uppoint, what we've taken on is that we are mapping out that ecosystem. We're mapping out that hub, and we're bringing together business community, indigenous communities. We're bringing together creatives from different parts of the creative industries and creating a space that enables the fashion, visual arts, crafts industries. And we were actually able to stretch, because if you give me $5, I'm stretching it to 10. What we actually took on, we went a bit beyond the scope of what we wanted to do by really enlivening people who were working on the project. So we were able to create the services part of the platform, right? We started developing that. So we were able to create that services ecosystem and space where service providers in the Caribbean can provide services to international stakeholders, international brands, and so on. And that now we're actually we were able to build on that and now be able to launch it. So it's actually really expanding the community beyond a physical space, but still ensuring that everyone in the physical space is involved, right? And going borderless. That's what we were able to take on.
So collaboration again, answering the gaps. Yeah, and I think even on this stage, there might be answers. You may find what you might be looking for in guiding your product to market through Uppoint and vice versa, and even the young persons you train may find space there. Yeah. So we're getting the wrap up signal, right? But we did have two important things we wanted to ask. So, okay, do I launch? All right. Okay. So each of you all have been through the CIIF process. You're here to tell the tale on the other end of our pilot, where we were learning, we were, in consultation, we worked closely with each of you, very closely. You would have had challenges in terms of, I know people looking, maybe wondering, what is the process like? How do we get to the end of this? How do we access the funds? How do we report for the funds? How do we close this project, right? Having been through that process, I want to ask you all to maybe identify what your major challenge was and what, if you had a wish list, if you could add to our CIIF design wish list, what you would add to the design. Just one thing that might make a difference in the way we deliver the program going forward.
Well, I would say that there's so much invaluable support during the timeline of the project. People, the support is available, but I think that the afterwards, as in the continuation, when you want to pursue it or carry it to the next level, as creatives, at least in my for myself, it's sometimes hard. It's the what next, right? The structure that CIIF offered was so invaluable during the process in terms of, budgeting and being accountable. Reporting was important, because it caused you to be disciplined and to be clear on what you were doing and where you were putting your time and the money that you were granted. And I think it's after you've put forward a set of deliverables, we want it to go to the next step, and it really is to me about, okay, how can we still have support afterwards, and it may not be the funding, but at least a direction as structures, what to do next, where to go next, so that it keeps going, it reaches its potential. For me, that's my.
So I'm noting aftercare and business development support, because you're in a different phase.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would just say the same thing, word for word. And I would also add to that something that Alana said earlier, mentorship. I think having a mentorship program within the fund is very important, because you've granted monies, we report on what we are going to do with said money, but just someone to offer additional guidance, someone that you can throw ideas back and forth with in terms of the what next as well. I mean, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here. You've offered excellent, yourself and Tameka, you've offered excellent just by having conversations. That's a form of support. Sometimes as a creative, you just want to hear yourself speak, because we live in our heads a lot. Everything is up here. And so just to have another person, with invested interests as well, that you could bounce ideas off of, priceless. Yeah.
So aftercare, mentorship, space to commune, and so our community of practice model, that's where that comes in, these types of conversations, I think. And Jamilia.
Yeah, I just want to really state that this project, what CIIF has undertaken, is audacious. And essentially what you've done is build the plane, and continue to outfit it on the inside as you flew. Now, you could have sat for like 5 years and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, while imagine if you didn't launch and the pandemic occurred. Like, really, if we're present in that, that's the first thing. So that audacity to really take it on created for me, I had enough space for anything that was occurring, any of the challenges. And that's what I brought to my team. Listen, there are challenges. We're doing something here. We're on the forefront. We're on the vanguard. We just get to build the plane. And what can we put in support? So it actually provided a space for us to develop ourselves. We developed ourselves in what is required for terms of reference, what's required for budgeting. And there was a level of responsibility with this team. I've never experienced a lack of responsibility with this team. And that for me is invaluable. Responsibility. What are we to put in? Okay, I realize this is missing. I acknowledge this is missing. What can we put in? That is invaluable. And the genuine concern for how your project is the trajectory of the project, how it's being managed, what is required is invaluable. So there may have been challenges in terms of administration, but you saw the team. And, larger teams have done a lot less. You know what I mean? It's really, really, really invaluable. That's the first thing. So a round of applause. Larger teams. I see big teams, and I look at the projects, and they're not this, right? They're not this. And it wasn't just throwing money behind a problem. It wasn't just, hey, here's some money and we did this. It was, listen, how could we impact the trajectory of your business? And that respect for intellectual property as creators, I have no words. Just to put in, I went to a session and they were talking about creative, as creators, intellectual property and how it can be managed. And I just cast my mind back to this project. I was like, no, I actually had to say, no, this is not something that cannot be managed. Even with what I would imagine, the immense bureaucracy of this bank that exists, there was still a level of responsibility for intellectual property. And that, as a creative, is invaluable. So what I would offer to anybody who's listening, put your idea down, as crazy as it would sound, as crazy as it would seem, and as audacious as it would seem, but also be responsible for unfolding that idea in a way that someone else could buy into it and allow them to contribute to you. When you engage, if you come to CIIF, allow them to contribute to you and have co-creation for the idea. It goes a long way. Whatever you have in mind, it's going to be even bigger and better. And on that note, what I see that we could take on, in the future is collaboration. You have grantees who have also benefited from CIIF. Collaborative programs, collaborative opportunities, and call on the grantees to pay it forward. Extremely, extremely important. Reinvest.
Thank you. I mean, I don't think we have. Thank you. Thank you to the panel. And I was getting some questions from the online stream, but I think these answers actually captured those answers. Anything that's missing, we're going to publish some FAQs. People have been asking about how to access the fund, if they're eligible, etc. But I think that was a perfect note to close, because collaboration. Everyone asking about which industry or subsector is not in our priority subsectors. Collaborate, innovate, find a way to bring it to our doorstep, right? Darren, any closing thoughts?
No, nothing. That was a perfect note to close on. I would really just wish to, extend my thanks to the panelists for not only being here, but also for the work that they continue to do in their communities, because inspiration is at the core of the creative industry, but empowerment, I think empowerment is really where, we can really advance and make this thrust even more impactful in our region. So thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for joining us here in the CB conference room, and to those of you joining us online, thank you so much for staying with us. Even though we ran a little bit over time, but
Yeah.
I think the conversation was well worth it.
And we just have one word of thanks. I'm inviting my colleague Tameka Lee Roberts. But thank you for being here with us. She'll extend our official list of thanks.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hi. What a fruitful discussion. Yeah. I deem it a great privilege to have been asked to extend a vote of thanks on another milestone and joyous occasion for the CDB Cultural and Creative Industries Innovation Fund, its beneficiaries, and supporting partners. Indeed, CIIF has made significant impacts during its pilot operation between 2018 and 2023, and you all are witnesses to CDB's renewed commitment to the continued development of the region's creative economy, evidenced by its additional investment to continue the initiative for an additional 3 years to 2027. Isn't this fantastic? The successful impacts of CIIF would not have been possible without the sterling contribution of key stakeholders, including the CDB's Board of Governors, past CIIF Steering Committee members, past and consecutive Director of Projects, heads of private sector development, MSME development, or grant evaluation panel members, current and past CIIF and CIIF Haiti team members, and all the various units at CDB, boundary partners, and grant beneficiaries. We are tremendously thankful for your dedication and commitment to improve the region's creative industries sector. This event is not only to share what CIIF has to offer for 2024 and beyond, but also to highlight and celebrate its achievements. We thank our acting head of the private sector, John Lisa Harding, for sharing some of the key achievements of CIIF for us to celebrate as we look forward to the great opportunities in store for CIs through CIIF. And Lisa, on behalf of the CIIF team, I'd like to take this opportunity to really thank you for your sterling and unwavering commitment to CIIF, always championing our cause. Thank you. Special thanks to our Vice President of Operations, acting Therese Turner-Jones, who delivered remarks reminding us that the creative economy is a powerful force for positive societal change. And we must recognize its value and address its challenges so as to harness its full potential to build a more prosperous, inclusive, and vibrant society. Through your remarks, we also noted CDB's commitment to investing in the creative economy through its 1.8 million additional investment in CIIF. We sincerely appreciate this. To our panelists, Alana Brooks, Jamilia, Alexander, Bique, Kimon Baptiste, we are sincerely grateful to you for taking the time to share with this audience your journey as creatives operating women-led initiatives and the impact CIIF has had on your individual creative endeavors. We love to hear from our beneficiaries, and we wish you the best as you continue on your creative journeys.
Thank you.
Thank you to our moderators for this morning's proceedings. Fund coordinator for CIIF, Malene Joseph, and yes, you've done a fantastic job. And young professional gender and equity from the social sector division, Darren Carter, who have expertly guided the event proceedings for and has given us an engaging discussion, or facilitated an engaging discussion. Thank you so much. Thanks also to Kweku Jelani, who provided us with such lively entertainment today. And we're also thankful to Mikey Bennett from Grafton Studios Limes and Rhymes Music, and the participants from the Island Music Festival Songwriting Workshop that was held in Jamaica, for coordinating the production of our new CIIF jingle. We would like to acknowledge the contribution of the directors, acting O'Reilly, Lewis, and consecutive directors of the projects department for their tremendous support as well. Thanks to the CDB team, corporate communications, private sector, MSME, and the wider projects team, administrative services, information technology, social sector division, CIIF, and of course, I'd like to make honorable mention of Miss Suzanne King, who has always been there to guide us. You rock, Suzanne. Thanks to the members of the media and our audience here and online. We appreciate that you took the time out to join us. We would also like to remind you to stay connected to CIIF by subscribing to our databases via the CDB website, so as to receive more information about upcoming opportunities. Let us continue to collaborate to facilitate resilient prosperity. Thank you.